There are cases that even the most seasoned detectives can't forget. No matter how many crime scenes they've seen, how many horrors they've faced, some stories stay with them forever. This is one of those stories. It begins in a quiet Tennessee town where laughter once filled a small white house on Poplar Ridge Road. A child named Turner Wayne Simpkins lived there. A boy with sunshine in his hair, wonder in his eyes, and a laugh that could heal even the saddest day. But what happened inside that home over 79 long days would shake every person who later watched the footage. Because yes, there was footage. Cameras, silent, unblinking, that captured the slow unraveling of a little boy's life. Every frame, every sound, every bruise recorded. And yet, for 79 days, no one intervened. How could a child vanish in plain sight, inside a home surrounded by adults, technology, and systems designed to protect him? How did every safeguard fail? These questions haunted the detectives, the prosecutors, the townspeople, and anyone who has since heard the name Turner Simpkins. Before we go further, a warning. This story is deeply disturbing. We will not use graphic language, but the events themselves are enough to leave a mark on your heart. If you choose to keep watching, do so with the understanding that this is not a tale of darkness for its own sake. It's a call to awareness, because Turner's story isn't just about what was done to him. It's about how silence can become the loudest accomplice of all. Are you ready to hear it? Turner Wayne Simpkins was born on June 18, 2018, in a Nashville hospital. From his very first breath, he was surrounded by love. His parents, Austin Simpkins and Sierra Ford, were young but devoted, doing everything they could to give their son a happy start. In every early photo, you can see that joy. A boy with soft blonde curls, wide blue eyes, and a smile that lit up everyone around him. They lived in a quiet town called Chapmansboro, Tennessee, on Poplar Ridge Road, a peaceful street lined with old oak trees and open fields. Their home was small, but it overflowed with laughter. Turner shared it with his big brother, Maverick, who quickly became his best friend, his playmate, and his protector. The two were inseparable, spending long afternoons chasing each other in the yard or curled up together watching cartoons. Their father, Austin, worked hard but always found time for his sons. He built them a swing in the backyard, 2 seats side by side, where they spent countless hours pretending to be superheroes or singing Disney songs at the top of their lungs. Turner loved Mickey Mouse, Sonic, and Batman, but more than anything, he loved his dad. He would run to him with open arms every time Austin walked through the door, calling his name with a laugh that could melt even the coldest heart. There was a dog too, Austin's loyal companion, that soon became Turner's sidekick. Wherever the family went, that little boy followed, certain that he was safe as long as his father was near. Sierra, his mother, was still part of his life even after the separation. On weekends, Turner would go to her home, where hugs and warmth always waited. She spoiled him with simple joys: pancakes in the morning, trips to the park, bedtime stories whispered softly under warm blankets. Those who knew Turner say he was the kind of child who made you believe the world was still good. There was light in him, the kind that comes from being loved and loving freely in return. But the world he knew, that small, secure circle of love, would soon begin to change. Sometime in early 2022, a new name began to echo through the Simpkins household: Shannon Elliot. She was 24, from Springfield, Tennessee, and at first glance, she seemed ordinary. She laughed easily, dressed simply, spoke softly. To outsiders, she looked like just another young woman starting over, trying to build a new life. Austin met her through mutual friends, and before long, she was spending more time at his home on Poplar Ridge Road. At first, Turner treated her the same way he treated everyone, with kindness. He had been raised to trust, to smile, to welcome people with open arms. He called her Miss Shannon, offered her his toys, showed her his drawings, eager to win her approval. And for a while, she played along, smiling back, pretending to be gentle, pretending to care. But beneath that calm surface, something darker stirred. Those who later studied the case could never pinpoint when it began. Maybe it was jealousy. The way Turner adored his father, the way the little boy's love filled a space she could never occupy. Maybe it was frustration, control, something twisted and hidden in her past. Whatever it was, the shift was subtle at first. Neighbors noticed Turner became quieter. His laughter faded. The sparkle in his eyes dulled. He still played, but less often. He startled easily, flinched at sudden noises. When relatives asked about small bruises, Austin brushed them off. "He fell while playing," he'd say. "He's clumsy." Shannon always had an explanation ready, quick and calm, convincing enough for those who wanted to believe her. It's painful to imagine now. A 5-year-old boy learning to measure his every word, to shrink his laughter, to study the moods of an adult who should have protected him. Turner had no reason to doubt her kindness. Not yet. But slowly, piece by piece, that trust began to erode. And soon, Shannon would make a decision that sealed the child's fate. A decision that would bring him into a place where no one could help him, yet where every single act would be silently recorded. In early May 2023, Shannon began taking Turner with her to work. She told Austin it was to keep him safe, that it was better than leaving him home alone. To anyone listening, that sounded responsible, even caring. But in truth, it was the moment when Turner's last bit of protection disappeared. The small manufacturing company where she worked had security cameras installed, quiet, unnoticed, and always running. Shannon never thought much of them. She didn't realize that those silent lenses would become witnesses to everything that happened next. For 79 days, those cameras recorded the unimaginable. At first, it was small. Quick gestures of frustration, a harsh tone, a shove when she thought no one was looking. But as the days went by, the violence escalated. Each hour of footage captured something no one should ever see. A child's world turning into a trap. Turner stopped singing. He stopped laughing. The bright energy that once filled rooms turned into quiet obedience. He flinched at every movement, anticipating what might come next. His body grew thinner. His eyes lost their color. Sometimes he sat in the corner for hours, too afraid to move, his tiny hands folded as if waiting for someone to rescue him. At work, no one seemed to notice. Or maybe they did, but chose silence. Shannon carried on as if nothing was wrong, clocking in, answering phones, smiling when customers came by. But when the doors closed and the lights dimmed, she became something else entirely. Back home, Austin began to see changes too. Turner had bruises that didn't make sense, injuries that couldn't be explained by playground accidents. But every time he asked, Shannon had an answer. "He tripped," she'd say. "He's just clumsy." And Austin, the same man who once lifted his son onto his shoulders, who was once his hero, accepted those answers. For 79 days, the cameras saw what no one else did. They watched a little boy's light fade, his voice fall silent, his spirit slowly break. And still, no one came. But the cameras kept recording. June 18th, 2023, was supposed to be a celebration. Turner's 5th birthday. His mother, Sierra, had been counting the days, planning a small party with balloons, cake, and his favorite blue decorations. That morning, Shannon made sure he looked clean and uninjured before sending him to his mother's house. For one brief day, Turner laughed again. He played with his brother, hugged his mother tightly, and blew out the candles on his cake. The photos from that afternoon show a happy child, smiling from ear to ear. No one could have guessed what waited when the party ended. To Sierra, that day was a gift. To Shannon, it was something else. Proof that she could hide everything behind a mask of normalcy. After that day, the darkness deepened. When Turner returned to Poplar Ridge Road, the abuse intensified. The cameras caught less joy and more silence. Turner's body grew weaker. His steps slowed. He began wearing long sleeves in the summer heat, a strange sight for a 5-year-old in Tennessee. The explanation was simple, but horrifying. His clothes were being used to cover what shouldn't be seen. Some days, Shannon brought him to work wearing a small mask, a comic book disguise meant to hide the bruises on his face. Behind that mask, he barely spoke. Sometimes she'd force him to sit in a corner for hours. Sometimes he was locked in a small bathroom with the lights off. The tapes show him trying to stay still, trying not to make a sound. By mid-July, Turner's movements had become slow and heavy. The boy who once ran barefoot through the grass now shuffled quietly, holding his stomach, struggling to stay upright. His eyes, once ocean blue and full of curiosity, had become hollow, distant. The last footage from July 19th showed him sitting on the floor in a corner, motionless. His head tilted slightly downward. No tears left to cry, just stillness. After that, the cameras went dark. The next 4 days are a blur. No recordings, no witnesses. Only the aftermath told the rest of the story. What happened between July 19th and July 23rd remains uncertain, but the autopsy would later reveal what the cameras couldn't. The final hours of Turner's life were marked by extreme suffering, injuries so severe that even experienced investigators struggled to find words. On July 23, 2023, the laughter that once filled a quiet Tennessee yard was silenced forever. That Sunday afternoon, July 23, 2023, emergency responders were dispatched to the house on Poplar Ridge Road. The call described a child who wasn't breathing. When paramedics arrived, they found Turner lying on the side deck, unresponsive. His body was pale and cold to the touch. The first responders, people who had seen more than their share of tragedy, would later admit that what they witnessed that day would never leave them. They tried everything: CPR, oxygen, desperate attempts to find a pulse. But there was nothing left to save. Turner Wayne Simpkins, 5 years old, was pronounced dead at 4:42 p.m. Shannon told the deputies that Turner had fallen out of her car earlier that weekend, that he had opened the door while the vehicle was moving. She said he was fine afterward, that he'd only had a few scratches. But the story didn't add up. The car seat in the back was untouched. A drink cup sat upright, still half full. The injuries covering Turner's body, bruises, deep marks, internal bleeding, were impossible to explain with a fall. The autopsy confirmed what the investigators feared. Turner's small frame showed signs of prolonged abuse. Injuries both old and new, malnutrition, dehydration. Evidence of a child who had suffered for weeks. His weight had dropped drastically, his ribs visible beneath his skin. His organs had sustained repeated trauma. The official cause of death: multiple blunt force injuries, compounded by starvation. The manner of death: homicide. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation took over the case. They combed through every corner of Shannon's home and workplace. At first, there was little. No eyewitnesses, no clear confession. But then, a detective noticed something that would change everything: the security system at her job. Cameras mounted high in the corners, forgotten, still quietly recording. When the footage was recovered, the truth emerged in the most painful way imaginable. 79 days of recordings, hours upon hours of evidence, showing Shannon's cruelty, the child's fear, and the moments leading to his death. Investigators watched in silence as the truth unfolded, their faces pale, some leaving the room in tears. The silent cameras had seen it all. They had recorded the truth that everyone else had ignored, and that truth would become the key to justice for Turner. By the time the footage was presented in court, the entire community of Cheatham County was shaken. Even seasoned detectives described the videos as the most disturbing evidence they had ever encountered. Each frame was time-stamped, each act undeniable. The cameras had spoken, and their testimony was impossible to refute. On March 4th, 2024, 26-year-old Shannon Lee Elliot was formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of aggravated child abuse. That same evening, she was arrested and booked into the county jail. Her bond was set at $1 million, but no number could ever measure the value of the life she had taken. Months later, on July 30th, 2024, the courtroom filled with people who wanted to hear justice spoken aloud. Shannon entered, head down, dressed in gray. The air was heavy, tense, almost silent. When the prosecutor began to read the list of what she had done, the number of days, the evidence, the details from those surveillance tapes, it took nearly 20 minutes. 20 minutes that left even the judge, David Wolf, visibly shaken. He had presided over thousands of cases, including those involving death. But this one was different. He later admitted he had never heard anything more horrifying in his entire career. Shannon stood motionless as her sentence was announced. Life in prison, with the possibility of parole only after 51 years. Additional counts of aggravated child abuse carried 20-year sentences, served concurrently. She spoke little. No apologies, no tears, no denial, just silence. Perhaps because deep down, she knew the evidence spoke for her. When the gavel struck, the room remained still. Families cried, investigators bowed their heads. What had begun as a case of suspicion had turned into a devastating confirmation of evil. Recorded not in fiction, but in real time. The judge's final words echoed through the room. "I've sentenced people to life before, but never have I heard anything as horrific as what was done to this child. My hope is that you will spend the rest of your life behind bars." But even after the verdict, there was one person the community could not stop thinking about. Someone who had known all along and said nothing. For months, people believed justice had been served. Shannon was behind bars. The case seemed closed. But in January 2025, the story took another chilling turn. On January 6th, investigators from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation returned to Cheatham County with new evidence. And this time, it pointed to someone else. Turner's father, 29-year-old Austin Gordon Simpkins, was arrested and charged with aggravated child neglect and child endangerment. Not because he had directly caused his son's death, but because he had allowed it to happen. Detectives found that Austin had known about the abuse for months. The bruises, the fear, the changes in his child, and yet had done nothing. Neighbors told investigators they often heard crying from inside the home. Some said Austin looked defeated. Others described him as distant. But what mattered most was what he didn't do. He never called for help. He never took Turner to a doctor. He never stood between his child and the woman who was destroying him. The indictment called it willful neglect, but many saw it as something even darker: betrayal. Because Turner adored his father. In every photo, his eyes lit up when Austin was near. To him, his dad was safety, laughter, and love. That faith never wavered, even as his world fell apart. Turner's final acts, covering his face, sitting quietly, waiting, came from the hope that his father would come and make it stop. But that help never came. When the news of Austin's arrest broke, the community's grief turned to outrage. People asked how a father could ignore such suffering, how silence could last 79 days. The truth was unbearable. The hero Turner trusted most had turned away. And yet, beyond the horror, one undeniable truth remained. Turner's story was not just about monsters. It was about the danger of looking away. The death of Turner Wayne Simpkins didn't just break hearts. It shattered faith in the systems meant to protect the most vulnerable. 79 days of torment happened not in secret, but in plain sight, under a roof, inside a workplace, within a community that failed to act. There were cameras recording, neighbors within earshot, a father who knew, and yet silence endured. Turner's case became a symbol, a warning, and a question echoing across Tennessee. How many children are suffering unseen while the world scrolls past, too busy or too afraid to speak? His tragedy revealed the terrifying truth that monsters don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes they sit at the dinner table. Sometimes they smile for family photos. Sometimes they are protected by silence. But Turner's story is more than heartbreak. It's a call to action. His short life now stands as a reminder of what happens when comfort outweighs courage. Every parent, teacher, and neighbor who hears his name must remember, noticing is not enough. You must act. Because silence is what allowed his suffering to continue, and silence is what we can no longer afford. When Judge David Wolf delivered his verdict, he said he hoped Shannon Elliot would never see the outside world again. But true justice for Turner isn't just measured by prison sentences. It's measured by awareness, by vigilance, by the lives that might still be saved because of him. Today his name lives on, whispered in prayers, written on memorials, and shared in stories like this one. The boy with the blonde curls and ocean blue eyes, who once filled a small Tennessee yard with laughter, will not be forgotten. So, if this story has moved you, don't let it end here. Speak up when something feels wrong. Protect the innocent. Share Turner's name. Because every time we choose awareness over apathy, every time we refuse to look away, we honor him. Rest in peace, little Angel Turner. Your story will never fade.